think if we go back over the
Graham.
last 30 years, I think if quite often you've shown what's possible. Really, quite often it's quite hard to visualise what the next hard thing could be. And I really think that in the late 80s, you could somehow you knew that, and were on it, and we kind of all thought, cool, Johnny, that is actually right. We can do that.
What are examples of that, Nick?
Well, I went on Wizard Ridge with him, for example, which that hasn't been climbed, has it?
No. So good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
So shit.
And when I went on it, I thought, man, he's right. Things like this are totally doable if you put the time in.
Yeah.
And you get every move absolutely perfect. And you've got the right footwear, and you've got the right body, and you put your time in, you clock in the hours, and you really work out how every movement's got to be. And I went on it with you for a day, and we both did all the moves, but hardly linked any. And I did the same thing on Somerset and Millstone, which somebody might have climbed now, way over to the left. And
No, they've not done that either. What's really interesting to me is how... Oh, God, this is quotey, isn't it, immediately? I can't be bothered to say what I was going to say.
Okay.
You can guess it anyway.
Yes.
Like,
They will do it.
mine,
They
but
will.
I'll tell
They
you, I'll
will
slag
do
off
them,
the
John.
boulders, indoor boulders, yeah. They're doing this parkour stuff, but I'll tell you what, they're nothing like as hard as the moves we were doing, me and Bobby, without any bouldering mats in Placid Brennan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so get it together, guys. You're doing all this pumpy pull-up shit, but basically you're still shit.
Yeah.
Right, good. Okay,
Yeah.
that's done for me then. Yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose the difference is those things have been... It's not creative... What? Bullshit. It's people designing the thing that they can climb, aren't they?
That's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Whereas I'd turn up to somewhere and something would present itself and I'd work out how it would be done. Not with even something that was too small for me to climb onto because it was only 8 inches high, I'd just make myself short.
Yeah.
Or if I'm climbing El Cap's a really good boulder problem. It's V5 if you're 500 foot tall.
Yeah.
And you can work out how to climb it like that.
Yeah.
So you can climb things in your head all the time, and it's not visualization because you're not just looking at it, you're actually embodying it and climbing up it. So, and it's not muscle memory because your muscles haven't got any memory. So use some phrases that are worth their fucking salt. I don't like sports scientists; they're all wrong. Probably very nice people, but they all cling together because they all think the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's the same with boulders. The modern boulder problem is an undercling, get a hold, swing your feet, share, swing to a sloper, catch, and then probably jump off because you can't do the mantle.
Yeah, I know.
And if it's more than 8 foot high, you haven't put a mat out, and your mate's not ruining the experience with a load of chatter. Yeah, so that's what I think about that anyway, and that's not on Cloggy. That's why I like Cloggy. You can get out there, and even Johnny chipping roots and doing things on site when he's abseiled down them and stuff. It's I just don't care because I like Johnny and he's interesting and his roots are fantastic, But some of the sort of Yorkshire approach to cheating I wasn't into because it's just lacked humour.
It's a bit prosaic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's prosaic cheating,
Whereas there's like a sort of poetic cheating, isn't there?
Yeah.
Some chipping is poetic, some chipping is beautiful, and it's in the right place.
Well, I mean, Antoine.
That was beautiful.
I look at the valley.
I think that was really nice.
They tinkle into the hole like this, and then
I think often when it's done with a smile, it's really
it
nice.
leaves the rock still fucked though, so I've got no enthusiasm for that whatsoever. I mean, Master's Edge, for instance, the holes round on the right hand side were either done for an aid route, were part of the aid ascent, or they were scraped, and the most unpleasant, painful little holes. The route's piss easy anyway, and the left hand side that did with one hand. I did it with one hand, so don't chip routes that can be done with one hand. And in 3 sections, I called it the remastered edge because they're chipped by somebody. Then it's not fucking natural rock, and quarried rock is fabulous. It's another type of rock, really, isn't it? You've got limestone, quarry grit, and limestone as well. you know, and that was the best line in the Peak District. So, as far as I'm concerned, all the chip holes should be just filled in, you know.
Wasn't there a thing a few years ago where people started chipping your routes?
I had Salamonk's Friends was chipped.
Perplexity
had a new hole.
Yeah.
Perplexity was way more interesting and harder. I mean, I just feel like just going up there and filling in all the holes that ruin the sequence and doing a sequence that, you know, no pumpies can do. Yeah. Oh, this beer's working a little bit. Well, it's not whiskey at least.
Nick, you like head pointing.
Yeah.
And that's been one of the things that you've looked into a lot. Looked deep into head pointing and sort of try to understand the sort of craft and art of it.
Yeah.
When it was assumed by the masses for a while, sort of post-hard grit, wasn't it? And a sort of which I think was a very watered-down version of
not so
what you were doing. Yeah.
I think the thing about head pointing is that it's a sort of strange term, actually. I mean,
did you invent the term?
I think I come out with it. And
as I said, a derogatory.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I think it was me.
And
I saw Hubble first.
I know it was me. However,
the moon board is mine too.
The thing about what people call head pointing is that
so
if you practice something enough, you get nearer to that thing where you don't climb it thinking. You've got that absolute total focus while you're climbing on just the moves, and all you're doing is you're absolutely lost in the movement constantly.
Yeah.
And you can't do that on site. You can't even do it. And actually, if you practice,
don't do that. Fair enough. I'll trust in a minute.
But if you've practiced something a little bit, that isn't head pointing. In fact, I've done some routes where I've top roped them a couple of times. That isn't what I call head pointing, anyway.
And that's what I'm asking. And that's the watered down thing is less the thing.
The more you practice it to the point, some people who say they head point things actually top rope them a couple of times, then lead them. That is not what I mean when I've used that term.
Yeah.
What I mean is that you practice it and practice it and practice it until the point where you can climb it without mind. Really, you're just absolutely so focused on the movement you step on. And the next minute you walk away at the top. And that's the beautiful experience. The beautiful experience isn't actually anything to do.
You more or less reappear at the top of the climb.
Yeah, and it's kind of such a sort of ethereal experience. And people should do routes harder if that's what... So in order to judge the style, if it is a style, what people should do is find a route that is so hard for them that they have to do that level of practicing and that level of work. And if they do that, then they'll see that it's a different thing, and it's complementary to on-sighting and to climbing things with a little bit of practice and everything else that people do.
Yeah.
And it's just another complementary thing, and it is something I really like, and I've always got something I'm working on. But if you don't push that level to the point at which it takes you hundreds of top rope attempts until you can walk on and walk away, it's very hard to judge. And what happens is a few people top rope a route that they probably could have led anyway, and then diss what it's all about, which really isn't what it's about.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that's what I think.
What have been the most practiced things you've done?
I practiced, first Mecca I practiced. I went up there after work. I used to work as a teacher in the days when you could kind of teach and then skip off and go and do some climbing afterwards. And I used to go after work on my moped or car or whatever and drive over to North Wales and then literally practice it that evening and come back. So I knew that one really well. There's a wasp on me. I don't know if it's going to sting me. I think they're pretty... Shall we see what the karma is, whether it does sting me? Anyhow, there we go. So that's one, but mainly grit routes.
So many.
Doug I practiced an awful lot before I don't know how many times. In fact, somebody rang me once and said, "How many times did I top rope Doug?" So as if they'd done it in less top rope. So I was like, as if I'm going to know that, but a lot of times, and I really enjoyed it when I did it. I kind of just flowed up it,
So you top rope it until you sort of feel what about the moves?
I used to have sort of rules of thumb where if I could do the route, if I felt I could do it kind of clean several times, it was probably time to start thinking about doing it without the rope. And
then you sort of do something to your mind before you set off?
No, I'd sort of just suddenly think I'm going to do it and just do it. And the minute you step, these routes aren't they aren't an exercise in courage or anything, because the moment you step on them, you're kind of committed to doing them anyway. It's not like you're going to think, oh, maybe I won't do this move, I'll jump off or climb down. You are going to try every move, because every move is absolutely at your limit. Thing is, when I was doing things like Face Mecca or Indian Face, I wasn't a particularly good climber. I'd done like a few 8As, so they were almost at my limit. That's what's really different now. We watched Angus, didn't we, do Indian Face, and Angus climbs like 8C, pretty solid. He's strong as anything, man. He is such a good climber, Angus, and that is a different experience to the one I had, or probably I'm sure you had as well, on Indian Face. When I was grasping at life, up there. It was like my life was either going forwards or backwards there. I was like absolutely grasping at life. The only recent one I think that's been like that has been Callum. Callum must have been grasping at life as well. Because Callum, man, good effort. I'll tell you, Callum did a proper ascent of Indian Face. There's been some pretty strong ones which don't count, but Callum did a real mega one. Good effort, I reckon.
Excellent.
Have you done Face Mecca, Johnny? Face Mecca is next E9.
Yeah, I do remember it.
It goes up.
Even I can remember I did that. So. Yeah, I mean, I went up
Face
there.
Mecca starts up Great Wall, and then to the Beely, and then cracks out right.
Yeah, I did it by mistake. I was on Great Wall, and I just
wandered off. Yeah. Did it on site.
God, did you go up here? And I didn't find. Yeah, I just remember I was there with. I went there and I practiced it once, did the moves, and then went for it. I don't know what the hell I thought I was doing. I wasn't that fit. I was in a really strange headspace to go at it like that. But I went up there and I had this amazing little fall where I got a runner on the lower wall, a rock one, and I was pulling on a side pull, and as I went past the runner, it was my waist, the hole came off, and I had to take all the tension out of my legs in order to sort of fall without
downwards,
using the footholds, and the runner just held it, cracked half of the flake off, and then I lowered off. It was the most, because if I'd have fallen further, I'd have gone like 60 foot.
The amazing thing is that you had any runners in that wall. I scoured it and I found nothing. As far as I was concerned, there was a rope. There's two ropes, isn't there, next to each other? Yeah. And apart from that, I just set off the bit from the bee there with one carabiner.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, this runner was of no use, but it's a fantastic route though, and hard as well. Yeah. It's like 70 plus or something like that.
Harder climbing than Indian Face.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a lovely name. It's a beautiful name, isn't it? A beautiful name.
Yeah,
Face
very
Mecca.
good. I like a lot of the names.
Yeah.
Calf's been doing an awful lot of that. Well, he's been doing an awful lot everywhere, but Calf has done virtually everything on Clog now. And I think he quite rates it. He found it quite hard, I think Margins is really hard as well, actually. I think Margins of the Mind is up there.
Is that probably JR's
E8.
route?
Yeah, that's probably E8.
Right.
Yeah.
What about Calf did Masters Wall? And he had some sort of massive experience in that, hadn't he? Which he started saying it was the first, not the first.
He thought it was E9, didn't he?
For him it was E9.
Yeah, interesting.
Is it one of those ones that can go different levels? And
hasn't it got there's 3 lines, I think, or something? People have done it 3 different ways. I mean, I watched Joey do the first descent from the top of Greater... what's the arete?
Great arete?
No, above Curving Arete.
Curving Arete.
What's the arete above Curving Arete? I think it might be Curving Arete. Well, above Curving Arete is the area of air above Curving Arete. In fact. Right, okay, great. So, Curving Arete, I was on top of that. Well, that's the best place to view the route from. And I remember it not going where Calf went. I mean, equally, I respect his opinion. I respect other people's opinions, but that's not what I remember. And I just thought Joe's traversing off. Really, it didn't. Having said that, it was amazing excitement that day. I remember it felt really audacious to see him on that wall doing that route, and I remember feeling, he's in a different class at that point. What was I? 1983, and I was only there by chance because I met somebody on Stanage, Neil McCady. And then when we drove there, we couldn't sleep. And that woman that
was it Neil McCarthy took the picture of Jerry on it with the socks? Is that right?
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, well, Paul Williams,
With the
I think.
socks.
Right.
Yeah. In fact,
The
look,
memorable
check
socks.
it out.
Oh.
I've got the same on today. These are from Skinny Dave. These.
I
Skinny.
seconded Calf on one of the days he was trying Masters Wall this summer. I don't know which of the days it was, but I think I'd just done fecundity. Actually, it was the day I'd done fecundity. I came round and Calf was on it, and I seconded the line he did, and I don't think that is exactly the line other people took. I think other people, maybe not Jerry, because I have no knowledge
further
of that,
right, I think.
but I think people went, or some people that had climbed it moved right a little bit earlier, but I could be wrong about that.
Yeah.
Now the line he takes is, or the line that Calf took is the best line you could do for, or the most direct line for Masters Wall, but it doesn't hold a lot of logic, because you can move right to where there's gear on several places below that. And I did think of doing it this summer quite a few times. I kept thinking I can do this.
Have you done Masters Wall?
I haven't led Masters Wall, but I seconded it first time with
Right.
Calf.
Yeah.
And I knew I could do it, and I thought, well, shall I do it? But it's a really hard one to justify, because it's quite dangerous. It's very dangerous.
4-star rock.
Yeah, and really, really
half
nice
a star
moves.
route.
Oh, the
1-star route or
moves.
something.
Well, I don't know. The moves are awesome,
Really
but
climbing and very historic, but
Yeah.
not very good route.
but it's just not independent, and
Yeah.
and it's really hard to justify really hard, dangerous routes like that if there's no independence. In fact, after you'd done Ireland, which is I repeated Ireland after Johnny had done Ireland that morning.
Yeah,
On your gear,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. These
But-
sort of details.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
it's not. I'm not spunking off here. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But,
These
but
details are kind of washed over these days in journalism. Yeah.
But
Go
after I'd
on,
done
Nick.
it, I
What
looked at the
details?
wall-
I'll
well,
tell you in
we'll
a
come-
minute.
we'll
Let
come
let
back.
Nick go for it.
After we'd done Ireland, which I seconded and then led after you on your gear, I then looked at the wall to the right of Ireland, which is actually quite a good line. Quite good climbing.
Lovely
And in
climbing,
fact, in the end, I top roped it clean, and that would give a hard route, probably like hard E8, maybe E9. But again, it's just like Masters. You can go right and get good gear at quite a few points, and if you did that, it would be a pretty naff route. And if you don't do that, it feels illogical.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I don't want to do this.
Doesn't
really.
work.
It doesn't work. So whilst I top roped it, it's a great top rope problem, but it's not really worth the effort of getting that bit better and practicing it and then leading it and taking the risks.
Yeah.
I mean, funnily enough, top roping, I think, is kind of as a leisure activity. What a great thing to do, particularly if you don't hurt the rock. If you're not going on something that's fragile on the wrong day, and pulling and climbing badly and not cleaning your feet and that kind of stuff.
I mean, less harmful than bouldering, because it's less repetitive.
And also it's bouldering where you can hang out with somebody. You're not going to hurt yourself. You don't need to make loads of.
And come on, I mean, even bouldering. I mean, bouldering isn't very harmful. None of these things are harmful. Think about a road. Building a road. We're all quite happy with that.
Yeah,
But
but you
bouldering
use that road to go bouldering, don't you? Have you noticed that connection?
But like bouldering is no deal, and certainly top roping is absolutely no deal. Honesty's the key thing, though.
Yeah.
Tell people what you did if they ask you, and be straight about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering. I may have had something interesting to say.
You were going to say something about detail, but maybe you don't know any.
You were saying people wash over the details.
Yeah, I was going to talk about detail. So, for me, there's one wire that I left in Ireland, and it's there for a good reason, because if you move it and try and take it out, it's going to damage the rock. And once I put it in, I thought, okay, it's a bit bogus having a situ wire in the rock, but it's going to hurt the rock if it comes out. And I haven't put peg in it. Did I put peg in it? No. There's not peg in it, is
I
there?
don't think so, no.
But it's something to aim for, which is quite sweet if you're going to try it on site. If Kath's going to try it on site, or Ryan or something, there's something to go for, which is good. And also, it's at the one juncture where you can get into the drain pipe crack, but it'd be harder to go into the drain pipe crack than to go up. But that's the kind of detail that needs to be shared, is don't take that wire out And I think the modern world doesn't have those sort of like news.
It's got less word of mouth, isn't it?
It's got less word of mouth. It's got less understanding of what the norms of behaviour are vis-a-vis the rock, vis-a-vis what people have sort of evolved to be a good idea from the past. Not that is traditional. Okay, you don't have traditional climbing unless the tradition is understood and upheld. So what we do not have is traditional climbing. We don't really have rock climbing. You know, for me, there's a fundamental thing about rock climbing where you go to the crag and the rock's there. Oh my God, look at it! It's so great. What are we going to try and climb? In some way, even having guides is they are amazing, and they allow you to push yourself closer to your limit, and they're interesting and beautiful things. And the standard of guides is outrageously good, and you both your guides are wonderful, I think. But it's like there's something about just like rocking up and trying the cliff with your mate, and you're a team, but you're not all. You know, but you're disparaging of your partner. That's very important. You can't go for it. Go for it. I care so much about your ascent. You know, do they really? I don't buy it. You know.
Yeah.
So it's like
we do sometimes. You know, I mean, that was the lovely
that
thing.
on site. But that's rock climbing. Climbing rock.
Right. That was the lovely thing about this summer, actually. Right. We did care about each other's ascents. Like I went up there. And I don't know what you thought, but I had no intention of stealing any routes off you. And it was, and likewise,
So
as if you could have managed that.
As if we could. No,
that's why I was so hurtful whenever you stole one off him.
I had no intention of that, and it was really quite nice that we were quite respectful of each other and other people, and Dave, massively. And it was kind of a different part of our climbing career, I think.
Yeah, it was lovely.
Yeah.
And, you know, I went up and did 2 new routes. One to the left, just to the right of Curving Crack, up a beautiful, beautiful array. And you knew I was going to do it, but I wasn't worried about whether you'd dip in. Maybe I should have been, but I wasn't. And it was really, really nice to do those with Dave. And
when you did it, I thought, if anybody was to do the second ascent of it, I was pleased that it was Nick, you know?
What?
Oh, what? The one right at Curving Crack?
Yeah.
That arete though, the short bouldery one?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, so,
yeah.
I thought the Indian face resonates in the notes of A and E, which I thought was quite funny, because A and E is normally something else. But it's like, you can hear it, you know, at 2 levels.
Yeah.
Kind of coming off the crag.
The sound the crag makes.
Yeah, sort of. It's got to sound like if you listen to the different planets. I don't know whether you've gone on the internet and listened to the planets.
No.
But they're giving off, you know, radiomagnetic frequency. You can't hear it because there's no air. But if you turn those radiomagnetic frequency modulations into something that you can hear but has the same waveforms, it's like listening to the planets, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of inherent feeling is where all the memories are sort of kept. So when you sort of do something and you love it, it's kind of indelible, because even though we're dead already, we're not here for very long, there's something permanent going on, in my opinion, because it was permanent before it didn't exist.
Or maybe you didn't exist before you were. Maybe you didn't exist before you were permanent. All right, I'm going for the converse.
Ask Johnny son about grades quick.
I'm going for the converse.
Good, that high grade. That comment's got a high grade.
You didn't exist, and you're not going to exist. I think it's sadder. I think it's sadder.
Sadder than that?
Yeah, I think you didn't exist, and you're not going to exist.
Not me. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the experience between me that's not there and the rock that isn't there. Neither of us are there, but the experience between us is. It's much more subtle than that. Jesus Christ.
What's your relationship with the Indian face? Did you sort of get? Is it something that
I watched Angus Keeley do it from the meadow, and I could remember all the moves while this little homunculus was climbing it that I cared about and had met and really liked. And he'd started climbing, and then the sun came onto it, so I knew he didn't know it. this is not a criticism of Angus. I've got nothing but positive statement. But he dropped a bollock there, really, because you don't want to be on it in the sun.
Yeah.
'Cause it makes you rush. The last thing you need to do is rush. You need to be pulled up by your interest to climb the moves, and it was really quite scary to watch him, in peril. It was no, for me. I'm just saying, it was scary for me. I'm talking about my personal experience. I was looking at the route, and I could feel the holds, and remember what it was like. So I had this really weird kind of 4D movie experience, and I had some.
I didn't feel that at all. I was watching him, and as the sun came on, I thought, well, that is cool because he'll get the full experience now. It'll be harder.
I do like. It was funny how that's kind of soothing because when I was on Ireland,
it's starting to rain. It's starting to rain.
That's brilliant.
Lucky bastard.
That's great. Now he'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, it was potentially a non-experience, wasn't it, for him?
Right, huh?
But okay, there is that. But I mean, when I was on Ireland, I was sort of going a little bit. Hadn't done any hard routes for a while, really, and I wasn't climbing that well. So, and E7's fairly pokey. So I was on this and I was climbing, and I was wasn't entirely sort of concentrating. I think Nick could see that I was floating a little bit in and out of proper control. I don't think that would even be visible to most people, but Nick just said, "Hold it together, John." And then he'd say, "Run that rope out, John." Those are the two things he used to say to me, like in the past. It was like, "Doesn't matter, John, you're already dead. What's the matter?" sort of thing. And it would just remind me sort of, what you're there for, and what nutcases like us do.
Yeah,
it's nice.
Yeah.
I just remembered, and in a way, if you're not climbing like that, I don't think you're a proper climber at all, really.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, nib sort of, people looking at their fingers and blowing chalk off and shit. They can all fuck off.
Yeah.
I've had enough. I mean, still buy my book, please. But it's going to be because it is the best book that's been written about technique. Well, will be when it's finished.
Oh, your technique book. Have you? Did you see Nick do it? Were you there? Never Nick did.
With Indian Face?
Yeah.
No. Or Neil Gresham. Heard about it though afterwards.
There was quite a lot of people there when I did it. There was a DMM meet. There was about 30.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was about 30 hunches there.
You did it for the
and they all
sponsors?
stopped
How amazing. How
all
amazing.
stopped and watched, so I had like the full audience.
Right.
It was, which was cool, actually.
Did you get the full experience of it?
Yeah,
Nick?
and I kind of played up to it a little bit, I think.
Right.
I think it's
I'm off!
Take us. Okay, take.
It was nice. It was like a sort of massively congratulatory affair afterwards. It was good.
Right.
Yeah, it was cool.
Was it a massive relief? Relief?
Massively, yeah, because I'd been working up to it for a while.
Right.
I don't think Indian Face is actually the living end. It's kind of, but it is quite dangerous and hard. And I think I
remember Dave McLeod did it a few years ago.
Yeah, surely that was kind of a bit of a path for him.
But I get the sense he had a tricky relationship with it. I get the sense he didn't want to do it.
He particularly wanted to do it.
No, I don't think he wanted to do it.
And that's a funny old route to do if you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Because you could die on it just by mistake or not being interested and fall off.
Yeah.
You could fluff it. That's the thing about it is it's mega fluffable.
Yeah.
Because if you do it slightly wrong, you're suddenly in 8A territory. I mean, it's actually got a position where you can drop your heels on 2 footholds and fall asleep on it. It's one of the few routes that you could actually safely fall asleep on.
You could go, and then also it's not really.
If you're tired.
There's a lot of talk.
If you're really tired.
Bored.
There's a lot of talk about on-sighting it, isn't there? But on-sighting, it is not the route to on-site. I don't know why people talk about Indian Face and on-sighting. If you want to do a bold route on-site, that is not the one. Because there's so many places you can go slightly wrong, and that would make a lot of difference.
But there's a history of people going slightly wrong up that wall.
Yeah,
James
and
and
the way you go is
Leo.
not the right. It leads you the wrong way.
Did Leo go? No, did he?
Leo.
What did Leo do? Was
Leo
it
Masters
wall?
on site.
Right. Some amazing ascent.
Yeah, he did with his stunning ascents. Authentic on site.
Yeah, with his thing down the back with
because his shoes were too big.
Yeah, Leo is
amazing.
Just because he's successful and good looking shouldn't blind.
Doesn't
you
make
to
him
the
a
fact
shit
that
climber.
He's a very good climber.
Yeah.
He went through a spell of remarkable ascents, didn't he, up there? And everywhere, but particularly up there.
Right. That's amazing, isn't it? Have you? I saw there's a book called The White Cliff. Have you two climbed together on Gogarth?
Ooh.
Funnily enough, Grant sent me a copy, and I've dabbled in Gogarth, but I'm not really a fully I can't really claim to be the full thing with Gogarth, really.
Right.
I've done quite a lot of routes there, and I've really enjoyed reading it, actually.
Huh.
In a sort of third-party way.
Yeah.
It's been really nice, particularly reading the sort of 60s and 70s stuff about Al Harris and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
Huh.
so it's been a really nice read.
I don't think we have climbed together on Gogarth, do you? I don't
think so.
remember it.
No.
So I don't think we have. It's a great crag though. Oh
Yeah.
my god, it's so much fun, and it's so varied. You know, there's at least sort of 7 modes on the crag.
Right.
You know, you've got your sort of hang upside down
George stuff.
which is probably the most interesting in a way.
Uh-huh.
You've got the death or dishonor kind of loose, chuck it over your back stuff.
Uh-huh.
You've got the North Star, drop the RPs in the sea sort of Paul Pritchard, well, JR stuff. You've got the belay on something that's not going to hold a full pull by mistake or deliberately sort of mode. There's the crag that's no longer there 2 weeks after you climb it, E7 on site. Lethal shit.
That's that thing down in Redwall.
Come to mother, yeah.
Come to mother.
I mean, seriously, I'm so pleased now. I'm glad that it's gone, that, because somebody would think it's not like it really was.
Yeah.
It was like having a black mamba in the house, and you forget. You think there's something wrong, something I needed to remember in the house. Now, what was it? You know,
Yeah.
and your kids are wandering around, and yeah, it was just lethally dangerous.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't loose fun.
That's
And
one
it
of
was
those.
too steep to be sort of
was-
finesse to make it safe. It was just really dangerous.
Was it like an arete somewhere down?
An arete that went into a crack. I put 9 or 10 runners in. And when Paul climbed the route, 6 of the holds I used going up the arete came off. That's how loose it was.
And there's not just that one. There's all the back
No.
all the back of Wenzorn is like that.
Yeah, but no, there's a huge difference between those routes and Come to Mother. That's what I was trying to put over with that description there. Those had a lot of warthogs, a lot of gear. That they weren't. I mean, I haven't done them, but say Broadchurch or something like that.
You've done that, haven't you?
Yeah,
But what
that's-
about well, the second?
I'm sure
pitch,
they're gnarly
what
as hell.
about?
I'm not saying they're not gnarly,
about
but
the
Come to Mother
unrideable?
was dangerous as
What
hell.
about the unrideable?
That's getting there. Yeah,
'Cause
that's a nasty
that fell
piece
off.
of work.
The second pitch. Well, I noticed in the book that it has completely
It's got some,
gone.
but it had some.
The
It
unrideable
had some
donkey.
pegs. It had some genuine runners though.
No.
That's what I'm saying.
I did the second pitch on site and it's gone.
That's true.